If you ain't got no haters, you ain't poppin', I ain't trying to hate. Let's have a Jordan and LeBron debate. I got time today. Drippin' on the chain, my diamonds say what they gotta say. If you think it's a game, I commentate, I ain't gotta play. On in the morning, I own my opponent. My competition is not an issue, it's cotton tissue. Unconventional, controversial, convoluted, unconditional, undeterred and undisputed. Good morning.
Good morning. Man, I love you, Wayne, even though you're a Packers fan and you're in for a long day on Sunday at Dallas. It is time to skip the BS, something Aaron Rodgers seldom does. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But it is right now time for Undisputed, time for me to welcome in two guys who played with their emotions on their sleeves and on their knees and on their feet and on every single part of their bodies and their souls. Richard Sherman and Michael Irvin. Morning, gentlemen. How are we today?
Good morning, Skip.
Good morning, Richard.
Yeah. It's playoff week now, so everything is great. And you're right, Skip. It's time really to skip the BS.
It's time to skip the BS. Yeah. Okay. I'm just hoping both of you take it easy on me today, and I do promise to behave today. So, okay. After Sunday's win at Washington, Jerry Jones said he'd be evaluating Mike McCarthy one game at a time in the playoffs. I love that. Yet yesterday on his Dallas radio gig, Jerry clarified that comment by emphasizing he, quote unquote, couldn't be more pleased with the job McCarthy has done in his, of course, fourth season with the Cowboys. Of the reaction to Sunday night's comment, Jerry said, well, I was a little surprised. I don't know how I could be any clearer. Coach McCarthy's under contract for next year, and so that's not an issue. I certainly haven't sat down right here in the middle of the playoffs and started talking to him about something like a contract, something like that. Why would you do that? So Jerry is saying there obviously hasn't been any talk of a contract extension. Lord, I hope not, certainly not yet. But the questions still remain. If the Cowboys do lose Sunday at home to Green Bay, would Jerry still say afterward that he couldn't be more pleased with McCarthy? Would he still be, obviously, that McCarthy would return for the next year of his deal? Or would he fire McCarthy if they lose Sunday? Would he fire McCarthy if the Cowboys beat Green Bay and then laid an egg in a second home playoff game and fall one game short of their first NFC championship game in 28 years? These are all very good, very powerful questions, very now questions. Michael, please, you start us. What do you think of all of the above?
There is a lot going on in the National Football League right now. And what Jerry said when he said, hey, this is a game to game, you have to look at not just what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys, but what's going on around the whole National Football League. We are talking, and we will talk later on about a Mike Tomlin that's walking away. We're talking about a Mike Vrabel, a Bill Belichick. These are some of the great coaches that have coached in our league and in our game.
Yep.
The reality is this game has always been and always will be not just about winning, but about winning championships. That's what you get hired for. And all 32 teams. And yes, this is a stressful job. I tell people all the time, if you ask me the most stressful jobs in the world, I'll give you, at least certainly in our country, I'll give you POTUS as the top. But from 2 to 33 will be NFL head coaches.
Agreed.
That is the reality of it all. It's NFL head coaches. This is what it is. You perform under pressure. You carry the hopes of a whole city and a lot of people. So all of those hopes and all those eyes, they are watching you. And winning 12 games a season, that's great. But that's not winning championships. And in the National Football League, that's why you get hired. So saying it's game to game, that wasn't a Freudian slip. That was reality, and that's what it needs to be right now.
Thank you.
Yes, it is disastrous if you lose to Green Bay. It is absolutely disastrous if you lose to Green Bay. And if things work out great, Skip, Sherm, and say you get a Tampa Bay, even if you beat Green Bay and you get a Tampa Bay or
good
something,
point.
and you lose, and you lose to Tampa Bay, and the Rams go and beat the 49ers and you could have had a championship game in Dallas.
Disaster.
Oh, my God. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not high. It's really bye. It's bye. That's the league that we are in. I don't want to hear this. I don't care to hear it. I don't want to hear from people like Sherm and Keyshawn, because all you guys want is more fodder. Oh, you still hadn't done it in 31 years. You're going to put the one on there. I don't want to hear it. Pressure is good. Pressure makes the good fold, makes the great focus. Show me you're part of the great focus, and let's go get it done. And I don't want to hear, you created this pressure. If you'd have won in one of those other preseason situations, it wouldn't be this kind of pressure. In one of those playoff situations against the 49ers, we wouldn't have this pressure. You created it. Get yourself out of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I hear you, Irv, but I don't know. Jerry, this was unnecessary. This all was unnecessary. We talk about distractions with Aaron. This is an unnecessary distraction for this team. It's an unnecessary distraction for this coach. And you're going to put him in a situation where in a game where they're potentially trailing in a playoff game, things are going to cross his mind that maybe wouldn't have crossed his mind had you not said this. And he may make some desperation play calls. Hey, we need a big play here. Hey, we need to force it here. Hey, we need to go for it on fourth here, because if I don't, I'm getting fired after this game. So, sure, the pressure is great. Sure, pressure is good for anybody. It helps. Pressure makes diamonds. Everybody knows this. But for the owner of the team to go out of his way to say, hey, we're going to take this evaluation game by game is ridiculous. And then for him to turn around the next day and walk it back, or attempt to walk it back, is even more ridiculous. We didn't say you were having contract talks with him. We didn't ask you anything. You decided out of nowhere to speak on this and then try to say, well, I didn't mean that. Yes, you did. Just stand on it. It's more ridiculous trying to walk it back. Just stand 10 toes on what you said, because that's what you meant. Like you said, Irv, this wasn't a Freudian slip. This wasn't an accidental speak. This was exactly what you meant, and it's the truth. If he doesn't beat Green Bay, if he doesn't take you to a NFC Championship game, he's going home. And I think he understands that. I think the whole team understands that. But I don't think it was necessary for you to say, and it's definitely not necessary for you to walk back. We know you're not having contract talks with him. But if you fire this head coach, he will be the lone head coach that got fired after taking his team to the playoffs. And he has your quarterback playing his best football of his career. And he has your team in a good position with the number 2 seed. There could only be one seed better. And they're tied with San Francisco for the best record in the NFC. So you can't even really make those arguments that he's not doing everything in his power. Sure, your team has lost big games. Your team has lost some games against some great opponents. I will give you that. I'm the one who stands on the table and says that, Skip. But come on, Jerry. That's enough.
Michael, you want to respond?
Well, I do, Skip, but I was giving you a chance to get in here.
Okay.
But there's so much in there that he left open that I do want to respond to, but I want to give you a chance to get in.
Okay, thank you. Look, Richard, we went back and forth about this yesterday. I'm even coming at it from a different point of view than Michael is as an ex-star player for this franchise. I'm lifelong diehard. Started when I was 10 years of age. I know what it felt like to have my team play in 7 Super Bowls. I know what it felt like to win 5 Super Bowls. I covered the locker rooms of Coach Tom Landry, and I had the honor of covering the locker rooms of Michael and Troy and Emmett and Jimmy Johnson. And I know what that felt like. And those locker rooms, to me, had urgency to them because there was a healthy fear in those locker rooms, a fear of Coach Landry and definitely a fear of Coach Jimmy, because he rarely walked in the locker room, but when he did, everybody stopped what they were doing and mouths closed and eyes widened because everybody was afraid somebody might get sent packing. On any given moment, Jimmy might just cut somebody just to send a message to the locker room. This is not acceptable. With this team now for 28 years, no NFC championship games, there's been a lack of urgency. There's been a lack of accountability. There's been a lack of good fear, healthy fear in the locker rooms. And it starts with Jerry, who's not a dynamic leader in and of himself. This was the first time in Jerry's ownership without a Jimmy or without a Barry Switzer, when I thought he stepped up and did put 10 toes down and took a stand that needed to be taken to send a message not only to the head coach, but to the locker room of this will not be acceptable. I'm going game by game because we are now in a position to win 2 games to get to the NFC Championship game, as you say, Richard. And yet, Richard, yesterday you make the case that today's players, today's NFL, doesn't work like this, that players don't respond, coaches don't respond to this kind of pressure being exerted from the ownership down.